Please welcome to the stage, Molly Burhans.
Hi everyone, thanks so much for being here with me today. I'm Molly Burhans, and I'm the North America Young Champion of the Earth. And this is a polygon. It delineates the Potomac River watershed with all of its unique landforms, geology, hydrology, species, populations, and human development. This is a line. It represents the border between Turkey and Syria. And these, any fellow bird nerds in the audience? These are migratory flyways of the world. A map is an incredibly powerful tool for understanding our world and for creating blueprints to change it. Maps guide and inform decision-making of governments, businesses, and NGOs. And one day, I decided to make a map. And it took my life on a completely different path, one that was to uncharted territory. In 2016, I led the development of the first comprehensive global database maps of the Catholic Church in history. And since, we have completed many more projects looking at Catholic communications, healthcare, childcare, and welfare infrastructure around the world. So these first maps are of what are called ecclesiastical jurisdictions, the church's own boundaries. And the administrative 1 unit, kind of like countries, is called an episcopal conference. Administrative 2 units are called provinces, and administrative 3 units, kind of like counties, are called dioceses, and there are about 3,000 of them. And there are many different types of dioceses, and they do not conform to geopolitical boundaries necessarily. The Seoul Diocese, for example, crosses North and South Korea. When we look at land and religion, I really don't think that there have been 2 things in our history that have influenced and driven civilization more than these. But there have also been so many conflicts caused by these 2 things. They're massively powerful leverage points. And maps, geography, are the way to understand them in relation to each other. And so why am I talking about maps and religion, and why does it matter at all to climate by numbers? Well, about 43% of the Earth's land is habitable. And Iyad Abu Mogli from the UN's Faith for Earth initiative has said that 8% of that land is estimated to be owned by faith-based organizations. That's more land than India and Sudan combined. So if you think about this, we cannot address climate change in any really rapid or comprehensive way without engaging faith-based non-state actors. So a little bit about my faith family. There are about 1.2 billion of us globally, and like any family, we're a little bit dysfunctionally functional. Catholic institutions operate 1 in 4 healthcare facilities, or about 26% of healthcare facilities globally. The Catholic Church helps provide education to over 54 million secondary and elementary education students every year. And second to the UN and all of its member organizations, it comprises the largest network of humanitarian aid. And not surprisingly, considering all of this, there's a lot of land connected to it. So when I was in graduate school, I was so excited to join the Nature Conservancy of the Catholic Church, and I went looking out because of course, there must be a massive network of environmental stewardship, I thought. But I was so surprised to learn there wasn't. And so I founded Goodlands to fill that gap. Further, as I looked for people helping Catholic communities steward their massive property holdings in an integral manner, I learned that not only was this missing, but there was a massive amount of gaps in the data and in the land records. This isn't something that is unique to the Catholic Church. Many different organizations are missing comprehensive land records, and they're tremendously powerful. So I realized that to really scale sustainable land use planning within this organization, we would have to get a map of what are called dioceses, those admin 3 boundaries that I mentioned, so that we could classify them, and when we worked in one diocese, we could replicate that in other ones around the world. So I found myself in the Vatican when I was 26 years old, being led down a hallway with some of the most beautiful maps I've ever seen to the Secretary of State's office. And I sat down with some priests and I said, "Do you guys mind if I get this map? It would be really helpful for my work." They said, "We don't have it." And I said, "When is the last map update?" And they kind of gestured to the frescoes on the walls. And so at the time, I also had this really interesting donation of the team that had just finished the UN Administrative 3 boundaries to help the World Health Organization with the Ebola crisis. So I said, "You know, I've got this great team. Do you guys mind if I do this?" And they spoke in Italian for about 5 minutes. And I thought, oh gosh, they're going to excommunicate me, aren't they? But it turned out they looked back at me and they said, "Why, yes, this would be useful for everything." So I went out to California and we created these maps. And they were premiered in December 2016 at the Vatican Arts and Technology Council. And I do hope that an environmental hero much greater than I'll ever be. But I hope that someday, ultimately that a Cartography Institute is established in the Vatican, and perhaps maybe we'll have a woman founder. So the work that we do at Goodlands is pretty simple. It's just map making, data systems, and planning, because you can't really plan land without maps. This is an example of the properties within the United States Catholic Conference of Bishops, owned by different religious orders and dioceses, and how they connect to habitat connectivity. This is really helpful for conservation planning, but that underlying property data is really useful for many goals. That's why we stand up data systems, so that people can multiply the impact of that information and use it for things like pastoral planning or understanding affordable housing within their area. So that underlying data, to reiterate this, is incredibly powerful. We know that digital land records can be used not only to help us get that layer that we can put all these environmental analyses on, but they can be useful in international courts of law for disputing land grabs and land record issues. They can also be used to help people obtain personhood if they don't have any documentation. Realizing how powerful this data is, those systems now allow different communities to engage with it. Looking forward, this spring we'll be having a forum on a geospatial infrastructure for the Catholic community. Just imagine thinking about the impacts of quality data on all of these different NGO sectors, healthcare, education, what our data can do to impact the largest networks of education and aid in the world by sharing it with them and also collecting data from them within a unified infrastructure. So this infrastructure, we've built it in the back end with about 3,000 maps up to date. And today we just launched 27 of our foundational data sets for scientists and educators around the world to work with of those diocesan boundaries in our beta public geospatial infrastructure. Now, we aren't launching any property scale data, obviously, but these maps show things like you can explore the Catholic leadership of the entire world. There's a special subset of people who will get really excited about that, and I'm one of them, but I'm guessing most of you aren't. You can also look at really powerful maps, like where the Catholic Church is the most powerful non-state actor for addressing biodiversity, where there's dysfunctional governments and really heavy biodiversity and threat in lots and lots of Catholics. We can also look at things like where deadly heat waves will impact Catholic communities. Running these climate models into this Catholic information is just one example of how anyone can really approach a group that they're really connected with for sharing information about climate change. This makes the impacts of climate change so much more personal when you see that, this group that you're affiliated with, so many people are going to be hurt from what we're facing. So looking forward, I think of Sir William Bragg. He once said that science and religion are opposed, but only in the same way that my thumb and my forefinger are. Between them, I can grasp all things. We all today need to think about that and need to think about its context with secular organizations like the United Nations and all different types of religious institutions, and how we need to collaborate to meet the Sustainable Development Goals and address climate change, and that if we cannot forge these collaborations, it simply will not get done in a timely manner. And I'll end with a quote from Finnegan's Wake. James Joyce once said, "Catholic means here comes everybody." Let's hope that everybody joins us to protect the planet and our futures. Thank you so much.